but what parts of it do you pass on to your children? I mean, for me as an example, one of the earliest memories I have is going with my father and my grandfather to Friday prayers at the mosque. So just as a parallel, Friday is the big day for Muslims. We have, a special prayer in the middle of the day. You may have Muslim colleagues or friends or going to mosque and whatever. Obviously, in COVID, you really can't do that. And I remember going to the mosque, and the way my dad would get me to go to the mosque, he's like, I promised you like halal pizza afterwards. So like it was always associated with like a reward. And it's so interesting because even though a lot of my values have sort of changed, at the core, I'm still a Muslim. I still take my kids to Friday prayers, but definitely, I mean, to echo Josh's point, as you encounter and as you grow up, and encounter people from a wide variety of backgrounds, especially in a pluralistic country like Canada, you're going to have your faith sort of challenged, or even if not, you just challenged, you're just going to have other sets of ideas and people that influence. I mean, I was a multi-faith educator I was a Muslim, yes, but you have in university I would do interfaith work. People from, as Josh said, all sorts of backgrounds. People who are spiritual. That's a huge word. So many people came from core faith traditions, but then the practice of it they may not have been into, but they still believed in something, or they wanted a different understanding of it. And you encounter people, then you have this thing called secularism in Canada, right? Like where the state is irreligious, even though it's sort of based on these Christian principles. Sunday's a holiday.
You said secular, right?
Yeah, I said secular, not sexular, but secular. It's
If it was secular,
that
would be my religion.
There's your religion.
Sodomite.
Yeah, that's right.
No sodomy, bro. No.
But
I'd be a front tonight. No, no sodomy.
But it's interesting because, for example, a lot of religious practice comes down to like rote things, like what you do, who you sleep with, what whether you pray, like these types of things are aspects of like how people's religiosity gets judged. So I'll give you an example, like halal food, right? It's a big topic on like, do you eat halal food? And for those who may or may not know, that's like how a meat is slaughtered, similar to kosher food. Slaughtered, the blood's drained, it's blessed, and it becomes a really big thing in certain aspects of the Muslim community. Oh, is that halal? So I mean, I remember one of the first times I had like a McDouble from McDonald's, and I'm just like, it's like mission impossible. I'm like, can I do this? Like, is this? And it's like, and for the longest time, I've gone through phase of my life was strictly a halal eater, sort of half and half, and now I'm sort of at the point where I will eat halal, especially in front of my parents. But if me and my kids want to have like no pork still, I hold on to something like that, right? But in terms of like beef or chicken, so like these are little things that value and evolve. Also in terms of plurality, right? I think there's some of the things that you're always talked about is religion by its notion has to be an exclusive. Go ahead, Quincy.
I have a question actually. So in terms of halal, so a place like Popeye's Chicken says we sell halal chicken, right?
That's right.
Is that something that you believe that they actually do, or is it
Just a
like
sign in the window.
A sign in the window? Like how does this work? Because
it's a great point.
no,
So
because they're like tons of chicken that they sell, right? So are they really bleeding out all these chickens and blessing everything and then selling it to all these stores? Like that's what I want.
Can they do a massive blessing of a warehouse?
you two are asking a theological point that's been debated in the Muslim community for 10 years, where there's actually a debate between what they call hand slaughter and machine slaughter. And there's a group of Muslims in the city who say, unless you individually slaughter every chicken by hand, bleed it out, say a prayer over it, that is the only halal standard. And then
makes sense.
And then there's companies like Popeyes who get from suppliers like Maple Lodge Canada or other suppliers where they basically like hang a chicken upside down from like a railing and they just run it through a speed thing, and like a tape is playing, or like someone's blessing it at a rapid speed, and they call that machine slaughter. And then there's like a group of Muslims who are like, no, I'm going to take that, and other groups I won't even eat that. In fact, Popeyes, it's a great story. Popeyes has a select few locations left in Canada that allow halal slaughter because the people in those areas said it's against our religious freedoms to change that chicken, but the rest of the Popeyes in the city are all machine slaughters. And as you said, it's that, is it really blessed? Is it not? And then and so this becomes a debate.
I would say it's not blessed. If it's in a recording, then it's just like playing Big Papa in the background.
Yeah.
That's different.
And so these discussions go on so many different types of issues, right? Like, in terms of like prayer and like food and all that stuff. So in terms of identity, it's always interesting when you explain stuff, because it makes you reflect on how you've sort of evolved, where like I know that in terms of certain family members, the thought of eating non-halal would be like you couldn't even bring that up, right? It's like all the meat has, and for my parents, that's a cultural touch. They came from Pakistan, where
Yeah,
first of all,
I asked your dad to make the chicken, and you wouldn't even touch it.
he wouldn't, because
He's like, "I'll wear gloves."
so imagine you come from a country where there's predominantly Muslims, everything is halal. Then you come to a country where it's not, and now you don't take that for granted. So like, for example, halal meat shops are one of the first Muslim institutions. And now it's funny, the kids these days will never know. There's halal fast food everywhere. Go to most West Indian places, most places here. Like there's so much halal food everywhere. When we were growing up, eating even at Popeyes was like a novelty. Now you take for granted in a city like Toronto. But I remember going to see my American cousins, and they would eat everything like from any store, because in America there just weren't that many options. And I remember we would go in and be like, oh my god, like can you whatever. I remember the first time I tried Chick-fil-A in Los Angeles. I was like, oh my god. And that's again another religious problem because of their whole sometimes religious stance.